Hello. Does receiving love, help, or support feel uncomfortable to you? Perhaps compliments make you feel uncomfortable. Or do you struggle to ask for help and find yourself giving far more than you receive? And many people assume this is just part of their personality and they see themselves as being independent, self sufficient, or simply somebody who doesn't need much from others. But often there's something else going on. As children, we learn what relationships feel like. So if praise was rare, your needs was dismissed, or if support wasn't available when you needed it, or love felt conditional, your nervous system may have learned that receiving attention, care, help, or kindness wasn't entirely safe. Over time, then, giving can feel comfortable because it's familiar, and receiving can feel uncomfortable because it leaves you feeling exposed, vulnerable, indebted. And you might notice this showing up in ways that you haven't really joined up before. Maybe you minimize compliments, refuse help even when you're struggling, keep quiet when you need to speak out, feel guilty when someone does something for you, and you find it easier to care for others than to allow others to care for you, or believe that you should be able to cope on your own. And these behaviors look very different on the surface, but they often have the same root. Receiving doesn't feel safe. And I know this pattern personally because when I was growing up, if I was proud of something I'd done, my dad would tell me not to boast. Now, I know he meant well, and he was teaching me humility. But as a child, the message I took from it was that talking about my achievements wasn't a good thing. So fast forward several decades, and I discovered that this made running a business rather challenging. Because marketing is basically standing up and saying, here's something I'm good at, and this is how I can help. And for a long time, that felt incredibly uncomfortable. Not because I didn't believe in my work or I wasn't getting the results, but because that pattern was running along there in the background. And once I worked through it, it became much easier to talk about what I do without feeling that I was somehow showing off. And it turns out that a marketing strategy, hoping people find you by accident, it's not particularly a good one. And that's the thing about these patterns. They don't just affect one area of your life. They can influence our relationships, our confidence, our careers, our businesses, and our willingness to accept support from other people. And the cost of carrying these patterns can be surprisingly high. You may become the dependable one, the helper, the rescuer, the strong, silent one, the person everyone turns to. And underneath, you may be overwhelmed, feel unsupported, and wiped out as though your own needs are always at the bottom of a long list. And you may think that this is just the way you are, but that's not really the case. These are all learned emotional patterns, and something learned can be unlearned and change. When receiving starts to feel safer, people often find that their relationships become more balanced. They can accept appreciation without dismissing it, or can ask for help without feeling weak, and stop carrying everything on their own. And many of my clients then describe themselves as feeling lighter. And it's not because their lives have suddenly become perfect, although that would be nice, but because they're no longer working so hard to protect themselves from receiving the very things they need. And this is the kind of pattern I help clients change. Drawing on both my professional training and my own experience of working through my own patterns and the patterns of many clients, I can help people address the underlying emotional responses that keep them stuck. And as those old patterns begin to shift, people often find it easier to accept support, build healthier relationships, speak up, move forward with greater confidence, freedom, calm, and choice. So if you've always been the strong one, the helper, or the person who never asks for anything, it might be worth asking yourself the question, what would change in my life if receiving felt safe? Your past may explain your patterns, but it doesn't have to define your future.